Welcome to the Good Bad Mad podcast, a show that's here to share the ins and outs of creative careers, connecting the aspirational with the experienced, with your host, me, Meg Ellis. My guest for this episode is Stef Ceretti, a visual effects supervisor for Marvel Studios. Now, this man has supervised visual effects for Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain America, Thor Dark World, Matrix 2, Matrix 3, X-Men First Class. The list goes on. He's currently working on the Eternals, but I had to promise Disney that I wouldn't ask about it. Now that was an interesting email chain to be in. If you want to learn about visual effects, this is the man you want to learn from. But hey, if you're just even a Marvel fan, listen in. You'll love it.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for making the time. You seem to be incredibly busy at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, I am. We're not trying to finish the film because we're not going out for a little while, but we're still trying to finish it.
Get the bulk of the work done whilst.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you still got a full team out there as you normally would?
Oh no, yeah, we're full on.
Oh, that's great. It's good to hear that you can still.
No, we've been working. I mean, it's been a year almost in post-production. Yeah. Yeah, it's long. This one is a long one.
Well, I tell you what, it's astonishing that no one knows anything about it yet. I mean, I know they're top notch on security. But I mean, no one even knows anything about this one.
No, we haven't even shown any images, any official stuff, nothing.
Are you excited for when people can? Do you get excited for that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait for a trailer to be released or something so that we can start getting a bit of excitement about it. I mean, I think people are excited. They showed something a long time ago at, I think in Brazil, in a Comic-Con in Brazil, while we were still shooting, and they showed like a reel, like a 1 minute reel of some footage that we had done, and the reaction was pretty cool. But that has not been released either. Nobody outside of that room have seen it. So.
No. Do you always go to like the big Disney conventions and stuff?
No, I rarely go. I really don't have time. I'm usually working, or I've been once to the Comic-Con to all age. It's absolutely insane. I've been lucky enough to be able to get in, and that was the year we were showing a little bit of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that was the year where they showed the first stuff for, I think, Infinity Wars, it was, right? Yeah, it was. They were showing a little bit of Infinity Wars. We were shooting Ant-Man and just showing a little bit of something. And then we actually were not shooting Ant-Man yet. We were about to start shooting. And then and they showed like a teaser for Infinity Wars, and the all age went completely nuts. And they showed Black Panther, and it was a good Comic-Con. It was really cool.
I mean, I won't lie to you. I'm a huge Marvel fan, so I'm very excited to get to talk to you. Is it scary having all this kind of pressure and secrets and knowledge that this huge population of people just want to pick your brain all the time and go, tell us everything?
No, it's not. I mean, we're very used to secrecy for every project. I mean, I've been in that business for like how many years now? Way too many years. Almost actually 25 years, and it's always been pretty secret. Like when I worked on I remember the first movie I've done, which was Batman and Robin, believe it or not, I did that back in France, in Paris. And I mean, it was all secret. The first thing we were told is like, you can't tell it, the company, the visual effects studio I was working for at the time, the first thing they told us, you can't tell anybody we're working on this movie. You can't tell anybody about what you're seeing. It's a common thing in movie making, and especially when you work on these kind of big, big blockbuster properties that you don't want to reveal anything. And it's fine. I mean, it's like you don't want to tell what your Christmas gift is going to be before it's
Yeah.
Christmas. So it's it's part of the deal that everybody's trying to
Yeah.
keep this stories and the characters and the designs and the visuals, all of that under control. Plus, these are big properties, and they rely a lot on timely release of material to get people excited. So we don't want to prevent that from going on smoothly and well.
So
So we're used to secrets. We're very secretive.
you've been involved in comic book movies then from the
From the
start of your
get-go,
career.
it's nothing that I decided to do or anything. It just happened.
You weren't a comic book fan though.
I'm French, so I did read a lot of comics when I was a kid, but they were not, American comics. They were more like European comics, and Tintin, and I don't know if I guess you know these things, but Tintin and Asterix in France, and all these things. There wasn't a lot of availability for American comics in France when I was a kid. There was one magazine that was called Strange, actually. That was kind of a mishmash of different stuff from Marvel all put together, and not very well put together, actually. There was no continuity, there was no stories. It was just, they were just grabbing stuff and putting them in a magazine, and people were buying it. And that's pretty much the only access I had. I had a neighbor that was a big comic fan, and that was a subscriber for that magazine, and they would like give them to us. And so, but that's about it. I mean, I didn't know much about I knew about Batman because we were watching the old Batman show from the TV. We got that in France. I had I knew a little bit about Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, because there was cartoons on TV showing them. But that was about it. I had no idea how big the Marvel or DC world were.
I don't think anyone really did until
it's gigantic. It's insane the amount of characters.
Insane how big it's got, and
it is
expanded beyond its kind of original formats as well.
Yeah, and moving to America and to England and then to America, but mostly in America, the amount of people that have so much love and knowledge for all these characters, people that have, like I know Tintin, I know all the Tintin, but it's like, I don't know how many comics there is, like 30, but some people here in America, there's like, I don't know how many comics have been released, and they have a full knowledge of all the characters and their interaction and what one has done with the other. I mean, it's crazy how much this is important in American culture. I had no idea, literally.
So you weren't necessarily a Marvel fan when you started, but you knew you wanted to go into VFX.
Yes, yeah. And that's mostly, initially, it came from, watching Star Wars when I was a kid. I know I've seen the first Star Wars in the theater. It was in 1977, I think. I was like 4 years old. I don't remember any of it. I remember when I saw The Empire Strikes Back, that I remember that day very precisely, that evening very precisely. And I always remember, like, I watched it and I was like, how did they do that? That's such a cool film, and there's so many worlds and so many things and characters and crazy stuff and spaceships, and I was like, this is so cool. I want to know how that's done. And my dad was an engineer, but he was also kind of a film buff, and so was my mom. My mom was, she had done theater when she was a younger person, and she loved movies, old classic American movies. So we were kind of bathed into that world. And my dad had a Super 8 camera. He was filming the family films with that, and I had two brothers and one sister, and we all used cameras, and we're doing photos and Super 8 cameras. We're doing little animation films with the Super 8 camera from my dad. And also my dad was an engineer, and in France he was one of the first one who got an Apple computer.
Oh, wow.
So to do his calculation for his engineering stuff. But we had one at home, and so I was kind of into that world of like, okay, movies, technology, computers, nerd.
Yeah.
And movies, watching movies. I remember watching movies, every Friday night there was the Cine Club on TV where there was all these old films in English, American films, subtitled, which was not the norm. Usually in France, movies are dubbed, but the Friday night for the Cine Club, they had all these old movies. And I was watching that with my mom. I was a pretty bad kid. I was staying, I wouldn't sleep very early. I would sleep very late. So I would stay and watch movies in English with my mom. My mom was Canadian, so she was speaking English as well. So yeah, that created all that kind of like these conditions to make me interested by that world.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Were you quite artistic as well?
I was a little bit of both. I was artistic and very scientific. My baccalaureate in French was scientific, and I went to an engineering school, which I totally failed. Then I went to university, and I learned, I went all the way up to a bachelor degree in quantum mechanics, and yeah, and then, but at the same time, I was like animating little characters and doing animation with Super 8 cameras with my brothers and blowing up stuff in the garden, doing little things. We were redoing, I remember we were recreating parts of The Empire Strikes Back on our ping pong table that we had covered with flour. And we had these kind of little, robots kind of moving around and blowing up stuff. I mean,
oh my goodness, the snow.
Yeah, the one with 4 legs and all that stuff. I mean, it was just crazy. We were just crazy kids during the summer and spending our time creating havoc in the house. But that's how we were.
No, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So you went to university for something completely different.
Completely different, because I was a big science buff as well. I love science and I love arts as well. I love pictures and painting and all that stuff. So and actually, when you think about it, visual effects is really the conjunction of science and art. So is, to some degree, all of movie making is that too. Science and arts and the art of storytelling and the visual storytelling. So it's all kind of related and working together. I mean, even nowadays, when I look at images and I look at simulations that we're doing and how we can recreate the real world and all these things, my knowledge in science is kind of helping me understand where I want, how I want things to work and how we can twist them to work the way we want them to work. But I think visual effects are really the combination of arts and science at the highest level.
When did you get your first taste of it?
Of visual effects? It's at the time it was mostly animation. I was playing video games. I was a big video game player too. And the city where I was, Lyon in France, was actually a city where there was a lot of little visual effects, not visual effects, but game studios. There was a company called Infogram that was, born in Lyon. That was a big game studio and still is to this date. And there was a lot of little studios around that were doing visuals for that company, building assets or building animation or stuff like that. And I was at home. I mean, I had been on my Apple II first, and then I had an Atari computer, and then I had a PC. And all through that, I had been doing little animations on my computers, very rudimentary at the beginning on the Apple II. But then the more the computers, progressed, the more we could do stuff. So I was starting to do actual CG animation on my computer in the 92, 93 on my PC at home, very little characters just doing things, and it took hours to render one frame. At the time, you had to be extremely patient. So I always did a little bit of animation at home, and then I kept on doing this while I was doing my science stuff. And then finally, but I got bored with science a little bit. I was like, this is not for me. And I went to an art school in Lyon that was actually really very linked with all these animation studios that were all around the town. And so I ended up working for one of them, I went to that school for a year. They kind of did a special thing for me. because it was like a 4-year school, but they just took me for the last year because I had already done so much animation at home.
Yeah.
When they saw what I had done, they were like, okay, well, you're going to do just the last year. You already know a lot about 3D and all that stuff. So we're going to do a special thing for you where you're going to do the last year, which is the 3D year. But actually, we're going to open for you all the lessons for the previous year. So you can go around the different, you can go around storyboard and draw painting, drawing, sculpture, all that. They kind of did something special for me, which was
Amazing.
really cool from them. And then after 1 year, I worked a little bit for that game company in Lyon, and they told me, Steph, you're not meant to do games. You should really do animation or movies or stuff like that. So I was lucky enough to send some tapes to a few companies in Paris. There was like 2-3 good visual effects companies in Paris at the time that were opened. Not a lot, but I was lucky to just be there and be available and get out of school at the time where they needed people. So I applied to a few jobs there, and then I got a job at a company called Buff Company in Paris, which is still a very good visual effects company nowadays. And they just got that job on Batman and Robin. So they needed people. So they saw my reel, I did a reel, and then they said, oh, just come in and you'll start working at night because we don't have enough computers to. It was really hard at the time. Computers were extremely expensive. The computers that could do this kind of stuff were extremely expensive. They were not normal PCs. They were called Silicon Graphics, and they costed a lot of money. And so I would work at night, and then they would teach me. And the boss was really very talented, very intense. He would work 24 hours a day, so he was there all the time, anyways. And after 3-4 weeks of doing stuff, learning the ways they were doing things there, they hired me, and there you go. I started there and stayed there for 12 years actually in Paris. Yes, yeah. And I've learned a lot there. I mean, that company was just, starting to work with American studios, and I could speak English. Not a lot of French people could speak English. So they were like, okay, Steph, it's an English speaking client, just talk to them. So I got to be in touch with clients very quickly, and I started working on films, and they were doing a lot of commercials at the time. And they gave me a few commercials to supervise, as I grew in the company. Learned a lot on commercials. It was really fun, actually, because, you do in a very little time a lot of things, and you have to take care of everything. So it was very cool. And talking to directors and clients and things like that. And then I started doing, working on bigger films, my first film I really supervised for this company was a movie called The Cell by Tarsem with Jennifer Lopez. It was in 99, I think, or shooting in 99, released in 2000. And I got lucky because the shoot was in LA. So I ended up having to go to LA for like 3 months to come and be there for the shoot.
Yeah.
Which was really fun. And that was my first time, being in LA for work.
Exciting.
And then I did the Matrix sequels, Matrix 2 and 3. I had to go to Australia because they were shooting in Sydney. So I spent quite a bit of time over there, meeting a lot of people that actually shaped a lot of my career after that. Because there's a lot of people that were on Matrix 2 and 3 that I ended up working with, later, and some of them actually work at Marvel now, and were the people that got me into Marvel. That got me some other of them, got me in touch with Chris Nolan, and that's how I ended up doing Batman Begins and The Prestige with him. It's just the people you meet throughout your career that just suddenly you meet people you're like-minded, and you share a lot with them, and then you grow with these people that are growing as well. So yeah, and then I in 2008 I moved to London. I quit that company in Paris. I thought like maybe it's time to just make the leap and go on the other side of the channel. there was a lot going on in London in terms of visual effects. It became a huge center of visual effects because a lot of big American production moved to London to shoot their, the Harry Potter films, and Warner Brothers were shooting a lot of films there and putting a lot of post-production work in London. So all these visual effects companies in London really grew their knowledge, and a lot of people from all over Europe came to London to work for these companies. So a company called MPC, the moving picture company, offered me a supervisor job there. I stayed there for a couple of years, worked on Prince of Persia, and then Method, which is another VFX company, and I knew the head of Method, asked me to join them to create the company in London. They were in LA, but they wanted to open an office in London. So I joined them, and then as soon as I joined them, I got at the same time pretty much hired by Marvel on their first film that they were shooting in London, Captain America. And I was hired as the second unit supervisor. So, these big films have the main unit where they shoot all the drama and all that stuff. And there's a second unit where they shoot more like the action scenes and the complicated, stuff that usually needs a lot more visual effects. And a lot of coordination between stunt and special effects and that stuff. So I was more in charge of that second unit on Captain America, which was really fun because actually all these second unit people in England, a lot of them have worked on like Bond movies. They do all these action scenes on the Bond movies, so they all have like incredible stories about, oh my God, I remember when we landed that plane on that cliff this just insane stories, and they're incredibly talented professional camera people and stunts, and they all know each other. They've worked forever together, and they're so efficient and brilliant. So that was really cool.
Is it quite a small world, VFX?
Well, VFX is quite a small, there's a lot of VFX artists. A lot, not a lot, but visual effects, yeah, it is a small world. Visual effects and the movie world is a small world. In this kind of films, when you think about it, how many big blockbuster films are shot every year? Maybe 10. Yeah. Maybe 10. Not. I don't think there's to that level, that price level, that budget level.
Oh, yeah.
So, and they take about a year or two to be made. The filming crews are going through more of them because obviously they just do the filming part of it. As a visual effects supervisor, I'm here from the infancy of when the director gets in and the first draft of the script is made to the very bitter end of delivering the film.
Do you exclusively work on one film at a time then?
I usually do, yeah. Sometimes there's a bit of overlap between the end of a film and the prep of another one or things like that, but usually it's pretty contained. It's a full-time job for one film.
What's the longest you've ever worked on one film?
I think Eternal's is getting close to it.
About 2-3 years?
Well, yeah, because I started in February. I can't remember now. Was it February 2019? Yes, I started in February 2019. So it's been
nearly 2 years.
By the time we finish, I think it'd be 2.5 years or something like that. I spent a lot of time of Matrix 2 and 3, but it was 2 films.
Yeah.
But it felt like one, but it was 2 films.
Definitely.
So that was pretty long, that one too. But
so your lifetime, but your career has really stretched across the whole kind of development of visual effects, really. Especially I can't even really fathom how much that industry has grown and developed over the last couple of decades.
It's the case and it's not the case, because I came at the time when CG was kind of being the new tool, a little bit, there was already Jurassic Park had already gone out in 92, which was a big influence for me, or Terminator 2, where they had that CG character, or, The Abyss, all these films by James Cameron and the Spielberg and all that stuff. So CG was starting to take over and being a little, but visual effects it's the oldest form of cinema. When you think about it, when cinema started, Georges Méliès, which was a French magician and also a filmmaker, was doing movies with visual effects in it. It was optical effects, but it was illusion for film, and I think visual effects are almost as old as filmmaking. So there is a legacy of all these people that have built either stop motion animation films, optical effects, matte painting. There's a lot of visual effects in old films. If you look at Gone with the Wind, had so many matte painting and visual effects in it. It's incredible. You wouldn't tell. I mean, you watch the film, they're incredibly well made. But if you look at there's a few documentary about the making of Gone with the Wind. It's an old film. It's like it was made in the 40s, and it's stuffed with visual effects. They barely shot in Georgia. They shot pretty much everything in LA, and they replaced all the backgrounds with matte paintings.
Just to clarify for those who don't know, what is a matte painting?
Yes, a matte painting is like, let's say you're shooting in LA, right? You're doing a big establishing shot of a house, and the back is, the house is supposed to be a Georgian house in Atlanta during the Civil War, and in the back you see, LA, and I guess in 1940s in Culver City, it was surrounded by oil rigs. So they would just create, at the time, the way to do matte paintings was to actually paint on a piece of glass.
I see.
In the rostrum of the camera, in the image, on top of the thing, paint the background and film it live at the same time, with the camera on location. The guy would have painted the background, and then they would film the scene, make sure that the people would walk to the house within the part of the image that was recorded, and then film the background live in camera. You could do it live. You could do it separately with what we call an optical printer, and doing it, in post-production. But it's a painting that you're filming. So at the time, you couldn't move the camera when you were doing that, because if you moved the camera, then nothing was moving. It wasn't tracked. That's what we call tracked. But nowadays we have ways to do it, and tracking, and also creating backgrounds in the computer in 3D, and do camera moves. And so now it's more complicated. We can do
it's all digital nowadays.
It's all digital. It's not. It doesn't mean it's simpler. It's actually more complicated, but it requires more and more people, way more people than just a very good painter which is, they did beautiful paintings. But it gives more liberty, more freedom to the directors to do whatever camera moves they need to do, what they want to do. So it's evolved, but it was there. It's always been there. Movies has always been about, tricking the eye. You build a house in a movie, you never build what you don't see. You never build the back of the house if you don't need the back of the house. It's always illusion.
It is.
And so we're part of the illusion. We're a little part of the big illusion that movie is, making a movie is. So,
but now it's gone to a completely new level where you're creating multiverses and quantum realms.
Yes. No, I mean, the tools are much more powerful, and it's the imagination you really don't have any limits. You can do pretty much what you want. Should you do everything you want? No, you should just think about making it work for the story, but you can do pretty much anything as long as you have the time or the money or the people, or it's all about that.
Visual effects is, I'm guessing, quite a blanket term for lots of different things. Can you kind of break down the little sections that kind of build up visual effects?
There's so many things. I mean, when you think about it, a visual effects department and the visual effects, vendors, studios, animation studios, they're a reflection in the digital world of what the real world is. So we have people that create, that do creatures, right? They like they used to be animatronic people, or they still are animatronic people. We have people that are specialized in creature work,
right,
and animating these creatures. We have people that are specialized in makeup. We do digital makeup, so it's makeup department, but it's digital. We have people that are specialized in set extensions, or building, extending a house, or making a planet, or that stuff. So that's the art department, and the production design, and the construction department. We have people that are specialized in adding cloth to people flying with a cape or a cloak. So we need people that are specialized in garments and specialized in the simulation and the physics of how to recreate that in the computer. We have people that are specialized in lighting, because we need to recreate the lighting from the set, but sometimes we need to also change the lighting. So we have people that are just lighters. So they're like the DP or the gaffers. So they're specialized in knowing how the light works. And we have people that are specialized in what we call shading, which is creating. Once you build a digital asset, you need to give it a paint, explain how the paint works, how the paint reacts to light. Is it so all these people are painters. Like you have painters on the set. Well, we have digital painters that paint material or they build material. So we recreate the world, and every step of the way we have the same departments in our world as we have on set, building the set and building the costume and hair. We have people specialized in digital hair. And they need to be able to groom the hair the right way to make it match to the real person, but they also need to know how to simulate it, how the hair is going to move when the head's going to move. So it's everything. We rebuild everything, and everything needs a very specialized person to do it right. Yeah. So that's what we deal with on every level.
And I guess as supervisor, your job is to make sure everyone else is kind of doing their jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm the interface between the director, the producers, their vision, and the people that are gonna help produce it, create it. So I'm kind of in charge of making sure the communication is fine between both sides, translating the creative needs of the director into the technical needs of the vendors, but also, especially at Marvel, there's a lot of communication between the visual effects and the creators, because we bring ideas as well. There's a lot of very clever people in visual effects, and we all have ideas. And the cool thing at Marvel is that collaborative space that we have between everybody. So everybody's welcome to bring ideas. So we're always trying to, okay, well, what if you do it this way? And sometimes it's like, no, you shouldn't. And sometimes like, oh, that's brilliant. We never thought about this. So, there's that collaboration aspect that is very important. And I think it makes our films a little bit more interesting sometimes, because we just try and, if we're very visual people, Marvel comes from the comics, right? So everybody's very visual at Marvel. So visual effects have a pretty big role in the films, and we're really trying to collaborate as much. And a lot of people that work on these films on the visual effects side in the studios are big fans of Marvel films too. Yeah. So they all are super interested and excited to make them fun. And, it's hard work. It's really hard work. People work really, really hard to get these movies made. Everybody. But everybody's excited to make them too. So there's a good collaborative environment that we're trying to create, so that everybody's kind of feeding each other and trying to find the best ideas.
Do you still find yourself doing quite hands-on artistic visual effect work nowadays, or is it more kind of managerial?
It's very managerial in a way, but it's managerial in a creative sense. So it's I'm not hands-on with the technical problems as much as I used to be. When you're a supervisor at a studio, then you have to deal with the day-to-day, oh my God, that script is not working, or not script in terms of written script, but like that computer script, script doesn't work, or oh, we have a problem, animators are not there, we don't have enough animators to do this. So I'm not so much into that kind of day-to-day thing. My day-to-day thing is really about creative. And I'm gathering all the stuff that comes from the vendors. I'm discussing with them every day. We do Zoom calls now every day. We've always done that. We've always been remote, because vendors are everywhere in the world. They're not in LA with us. They're in London. They're in Berlin. They're in some of them are in LA, but not at our studios. Some of them are in Melbourne. Some are in New Zealand, in Wellington. So we have people from all over the world working on these 24/7. So we get every day a lot of material, and we discuss about every submissions that they make to us. I decide what's going to be put in front of the director, what needs more work. We come up with ideas that we're going to work on our side and then present to the studio. And then, I'm also the return channel. So when I show to the director, we have reviews every 2-3 days to show the progress on the work. And then we discuss about it. The editors are here, the director, the producers, and then we make a plan, and then we do changes, or we say, okay, this is good, this is final, this is done, things like that. It's a constant, and that's what's happening in post-production. In pre-production, I'm more with the different studio head, not studio head, but department heads, the DP, the production designer, the costume people, the director. We prepare the film, so we have to talk about what's going to be digital, what's going to be for real, what do we need from the stunts, from the special effects people, what are we going to do in live action, practical, all these things. So there's different phases of making a film. So it never stays the same, which is kind of cool,
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
And I get to travel a lot as well. I'm like 6 months a year or 7 months a year at my house. I mean, this pandemic has been the longest I've been in my house for, but usually I'm like, 6, 7, 8 months in London, then back in LA, and then we start another film and we go somewhere else. And so it keeps on moving. It's a circus.
Can I ask about the live action elements? So how do you decide, I guess in pre-production, you've got the script. How do you decide what bits you need filmed in the flesh versus bits that you can kind of make up later?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different things. I mean, it also depends on the director you work with, because some directors are more into, okay, I want to shoot more live action, or I want to get that explosion in camera, or I want to get,
Sorry, my dog's decided to join us.
Hi, dog. Hi, doggy. What's his name?
Oh, all of them have decided to join.
All of them. See, they're interested by that talk. That's all fine. So we collectively decide, what is achievable first. And sometimes what is achievable is limited by either your budget, the time you have to film it, the appetite from the director to do it live or not, where you are going to shoot. If you want to shoot an explosion in the middle of London, you might have trouble shooting it.
Yeah.
Because they might not like that. There's so many factors that come into, redressing the set. For example, are you going to blow up that set? But the schedule is that the next day you have to shoot that set with an actor that's not available on the day you're shooting the explosion.
Right.
And you need to have that set not blown up the next day, but you can't rebuild it once it's blown up. So how do you do that? There's so many factors that come into these decisions.
Yeah.
That it's a really big puzzle. Usually there's simple answers, right? You have Rocket and Groot. You're not going to shoot these guys for real.
Yeah.
This is a given. But there's other things that are on the edge of like, okay, we could do that physically, but would it be the best use of our time? Maybe not. And we can do it digitally. Or second unit's going to pick it up a few days later and they're going to blow that up. But there might be some little things we need to tweak or help with, because continuity is not going to work, because we'll have shot something and then suddenly the explosion needs to happen in another place or whatever. There's so many things that come into that.
But I'm assuming if the choice comes down to simply live action or visual effects, you would choose the live action, because that's
usually, personally, I try to always get something shot in camera. Like there was, on Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, there's that scene in the prison, right, in the kiln. And there was a lot of questions about how much of this do we need to build, how much of that set, because that was a very big set and a very complex one to build. So, obviously the question comes from the producers, do we have to build that much? And then you look at the scenes, and then you're looking at the blocking, and we had James Gunn was very, very brilliant at telling us exactly what he needed, because he had in his mind, he had a very clear idea of what the scene should be. And he does a lot of little drawings, storyboards, and then we do a lot of pre-visualization before we start shooting. We create an animated version of the film.
Right.
which is both a very good creative document and a very good technical document, because it tells us what we're looking at on the set, which angles we're going to use, and what camera moves does the director want, so what camera equipment we need. It's a very important filming document, and that tells us and gives us the ability to say, well, okay, well, we can build 2 levels, 2 floors, and then the rest can be top-ups, because most of the action is happening on the floor level.
Yeah.
So, but then at some point there was a question, this building that set 360 was extremely complicated. And the question came, can we just build half of it and then trick in the camera, shooting just, making feel like the other half is the same. And then the more we went into the previews, the more it was kind of obvious we couldn't do that. So we had to build it and, bite the bullet and build that stuff. So, there's the time, the money, all these aspects that are very essential to making a film. You don't have an unlimited amount of resources. Even though you're on a big film, you never have enough money. It sounds like if you're on a big film, you have enough money to do everything. Well, usually when you're on a big film like that, you have enough money you'd never have enough money to do, to do everything. So you have to be very smart about where you want to put your budget,
So take that prison scene, the escape with group going up to the central
the tower,
and all the little drones and stuff like that. Yes. How much would that cost to put that scene?
I can tell you the cost, because there's so many different costs with building the scene, building the set, building I can't tell you the cost. I mean, these movies are expensive. So you can imagine
how you get. I'm assuming
we budget. We do budget. We budget everything. We know what the scenes are going to be. We look at the script. We break down the script. My producer, Susan Pickett, which I've worked with since Guardians. We've done all the Marvel films together. So that's what a big part of what we do in pre-production is actually budgeting the film. So we read the script, and every line we're like, okay, well, how is that going to be done? So we make assumptions. We discuss with the director, production designer. We make assumptions on what's going to be practical and what's not going to be practical. And we budget every single line of the film on our side. But there's also other budgets. Obviously, there's, construction and stunts and all these things. So, and then that's not our budget. That's the budget for the film. But it gets quite complicated, and it gets quite expensive.
That's good. I mean, yes, I assume it would, but are you guessing then half the time how much you think it's going to cost?
There's an element of guess, but there's an element of experience. I mean, I worked at a visual effects studio for years, so I know how much things cost. I know how many people it's going to take to do that. What that one shot. So I can tell roughly, okay, this is going to take, we're going to build all these digital assets. So that's one thing that we put on the side. And then we're going to need animators and FX animators and compositors and lighters. And they're going to work for 3 weeks on that, 2 weeks. And then you get a sense, this kind of shot is going to cost about that much. We've done so many shots in our lives that we know simple shots how much they cost, and super complicated shots how much they cost. So we break down the script in complexity levels, and that's how we can get a good idea of where we're gonna end up.
Do you remember a scene or a sequence which was just so complex that it's kind of stands out in all your work history?
I've done quite a few of those. One that was very visually complicated to appreciate from the get-go was Doctor Strange, because it was so out there, So in this case, you're getting in a space where, okay, I need to build all of New York digitally so that it can fold onto itself. That must be a little bit of work. And then you're starting to look at the price of all these things and the time it's going to take to do all these things and making them look good, and figuring out not only you're building New York, but you're making it fold and you're making it fractalize and all that stuff. So it gets very complicated, and you don't quite, when you're there reading that on the page, it's just one line of, and then your fold starts to fold. Okay, so how many shots and what is it and what am I looking at? And so it's quite complicated, but then you just you believe your gut instincts, and you talk to the director and get a grasp on how big the expectation is. And usually, when you're at Marvel, you're trying to fulfill the expectation from your director, so you're thinking, okay, well, that's going to be big. So
I guess you just take the first step and go from there. You just work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at some point, it's like when you're building a house and you're being told build a mansion, a big mansion, and I say, how big? And then you talk to the person that wants the mansion, and then it gets clearer and clearer as you talk to them. It's the same thing with reading a script and talking to the director and understanding where the vision wants to land, and then you get a better sense of how much work it's gonna take.
What's your role when it comes to being on set then?
I'm always on set. And I'm like sitting usually next to the director. So I spend on Marvel film, I spend my day on set when we shoot, and I'm there consulting with the director all the time, because there's so many things that need us. So I'm here and answering questions and coming up with ideas, and we talk to the DP and the camera crew on framing. What are we going to see here, Steph? We're in front of a blue screen. Well, we're going to see this, and I've got my little drawings, concept or previs that I can show them and tell them, if you go on an 18 mil lens, then this is what you're going to see. If you go on a 25, you're going to see less. This is what you're going to see. Things like that. I talk to the actors to explain to them, when they have powers, what these powers are going to look like. Show them when they're talking to Rocket and Groot. I tell them, well, you have to look here. This is your eye line, and things like that. So I'm always there to try and help as much as possible, making sure that the actors are comfortable, and the director are comfortable with what we're going to do later.
Are you ever tempted to mess with the actors?
Mess? What does that mean?
Is it you have so much power as this person who's gonna make it look good at a later date? Like, you can make do so many weird stuff.
I know, but I actually rely a lot on the actors to sell what we do.
Yeah.
Because if they don't believe in what we do, then how the actors are the conduit for the audience to experience what they see, right? So if you spend the time with the actor, all the actors, and explaining them clearly as possible. I mean, on Doctor Strange, it's not super clear when you try to explain, but that's why we have previews again. We have previews to show them you're seeing New York fall in front of you, and this is a very rudimentary version of what it's going to look like, and they get it, and they work as an actor is to imagine that they're looking at that, and it's very important for me, because the better they are reacting to what we're going to do later, the better the effect is actually. So it's very important for the director to direct them in this, and me to be there to help that conversation.
Say you're chatting with an actor, say Doctor Strange and his circles of light power thing. What do you call those?
The portals.
The portals.
When they open the portals.
Those things. Are you explaining to them this is how it works? Like, you're physically drawing the circle.
For example, for the portals, what we had done, like in prep, we had, what we do very often, we had just shot one of our guys doing the moves and then added the portal to it, so that the actor could see, oh, okay, this is what's going on. It's happening that far away from me. This is the light and the particles, and the guy's done that motion like that. We played around with the motion. We also did tests for when they create the stuff like that. I remember Tilda Swinton, we did a test with a guy doing, when she's explaining to Strange the magic and she's creating all these beautiful mandalas in front of her. We had actually done a version of that with someone else, and then I showed her the day we shot it. I said, this is what it's going to look like. It wasn't finished, but this is roughly what it's going to look like. There's particles, pouring out of these lines of energy. It looks like a mandala, and we have interactive light on set to, light them with that, all that stuff. We have cues that the first AD and the director give them for when the light's going to come up and what's going to happen. So she had all that stuff, and we had worked with a specialist of this kind of motion and everything. So they are trained
Yeah.
before we shoot. Obviously, they
I
are
see.
trained with kind of the way they can use their hands to create lines. So everything was as prepared as possible. Obviously, they still have to play with their imagination, but we're here to support their work,
Yeah.
their acting talent with as much material we can show them to help them
Yeah.
create that illusion.
So it's so crucial that you're building this universe and the rules of this universe
Yeah, yeah. It's,
beforehand,
I
so
mean,
that it.
that's what we in prep we spend some fair amount of time trying to figure out what these things are. Sometimes it's more successful than others. Sometimes we're more prepped than others, but depends on how much time we have in prep. We were very, very well prepped for Doctor Strange because the movie, the shooting got pushed 5 months to wait for Benedict's availability. He wasn't available at the time we were initially supposed to start shooting. And then, so they pushed the shoot 6 months, 5 or 6 months. So we had which was totally necessary because it was such a complicated film. So that was brilliant that we got to get more time in prep to actually figure out what the universe would be at that point. It killed us a little bit in post because we got less time in post, but we got to get it done anyways.
Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
I got films that I really proud of. It's every time someone asks me that question, it's not the first time. I say I cannot choose amongst my children.
That's true.
But there's I'm very proud of. Every project is different, right? Even though I do a lot of comic book movies, they're all very different actually. When you think about Guardians of the Galaxy or Doctor Strange or Ant-Man and now Eternals, they're all different type of films. They're all put in the category of they're all comic book movies, but the truth is they're not at all the same.
No, they're very different.
So they all have something, and they all have something special. There's movies where I really enjoy working with the director or the actors, or I learned a lot about. I like learning, so I like learning from the people I work with. And every director is different, so you learn to understand their psyche. So it's a big part of it for me. And also The Prestige, I really liked working on The Prestige because I think it's a beautiful movie. There's not a lot of visual effects in it, but I think it's an amazing movie. I love working on Guardians of the Galaxy because it was really fun. Very complicated and very hard to do, but very fun. Good group of people. Doctor Strange was so weird. I loved it because visually it was so interesting. It was so out there. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I actually really like working on it because it was such a great crew, amazing people. I mean, most of the crews on Marvel film are really good people. But there was a sense of really family on Ant-Man and the Wasp because Peyton Reed is such a great director with his actors, and it was the second one. It was such a good group of people, and working with Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer, it's like, oh my God, these people are like movie gods. And they're amazingly nice people. So I loved working on a movie, not Marvel, Cloud Atlas, because it was with the Wachowski, which I had already worked with them on Matrix 2 and 3 and did a little bit of work for them on Speed Racer. Amazing group of people, amazing, super nice people, and super creative. And also the German crew on Tom Tykwer, which was the other director on Cloud Atlas. Amazing German crew. We shot in Berlin. It was a brilliant experience, and such a great cast as well. The movie, I know some people don't like the movie. I love this movie. They all have something. Even the worst movie I worked on, I've learned something. It's true. Sometimes you do a film and it's maybe not the best film ever, but you've learned something. You've met some people that are cool. You've made, you've tried something that didn't quite work, but that you were happy to try. It's you got to learn from every experience, good or bad. And actually, you often learn more from bad experiences. But it's.
Talking of learning, though, I know there's a lot of kind of research and development that goes on during these films. It's like, we don't know how to make that. Someone figure it out. How are you constantly thinking about the next steps in
Mhm.
VFX, like the
Yeah.
next big thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to be aware of what's happening, and not just what's happening on the films that are being made, but what's happening in R&D. You know, there's a lot of people that do computer graphics R&D. You know, like the thing that people talk a lot about right now is like deep fakes and things like that. And it's been deep fakes. You know, people changing the face of someone.
Oh
There's
wow.
a Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that. You should look at on YouTube and look for deep fakes, and
Okay.
they're people using artificial intelligence to replace the face of someone with someone else, and or do use a lot more artificial intelligence and computer machine learning to do visual effects, and there's a lot of that going on right now.
What could that kind of technology be
Well,
used
for
for?
example, you have actors doing stunts and they're not doing stunts because they can't do it's too dangerous, and you
Yeah.
want to replace the face. You used to replace the face, using 2D methods that are sometimes imperfect, or CG face that are getting better but are not totally perfect yet. And now you can use computer, machine learning and artificial intelligence to actually do that process, and it gives extremely good results. And it's kind of automated to some degree, not completely yet, but it is. There's a lot of stuff like that. There's, like stuff we've done on Ant-Man and the Wasp. We've made people older, for example, or younger, and this is a very painstaking process done in 2D by hand. And actually, you can feed the algorithm with images of, like, Michael Douglas in his movies when he was 40 years old. You would feed that to the computer and tell, this is the guy I want that guy to look like, and it will do it for you.
That's
Um,
astonishing.
yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like that that's going on. There's also a lot of virtual production stuff that's going on. The Mandalorian TV show is now using game engines to create backgrounds in real time as you shoot. So you don't use a blue screen anymore. You actually shoot within what we call a volume, and the camera moves, and all the CG environment actually moves or recreates the perspective based on the camera move. It's very complex and
It's
complicated.
astonishing. Is that almost
Um,
like if putting yourself in a VR environment?
it is, yeah, it is pretty much based on VR, AR, all that, these research that have again been going on for years, and now that starts to go into production, and there's more and more of that. So there's a lot of things that are boiling, ideas that are boiling everywhere in the world. Some of them at visual effects studios, some of them more like universities doing computer graphics research. So you have to be aware of all these things, so you can think about, okay, there's that piece of technology that happens here. These people might not think about how we're going to use it, but there might be a way we can use it that they haven't thought about, that we can, so you always kind of need to be aware of what's going on. But at the same time, I'm a visual effects, I love tech, I'm a big geek, but I will never try to force a technology into a story. So that's the thing that and also you have to be careful about, when you're bringing a technology on a film set, you have to be careful about, is it going to work first?
Yeah.
And secondly, is it going to make it better, faster, cheaper, or more efficient? So you have to think about, there's a trade-off to using tech in places, and my take on it is that I don't want to stop the flow of the shoot. I don't want visual effects to prevent the director from making his day happen, or making the actors uncomfortable with something, and then getting in the way of making what is movie making work. So I'm very precious about that. I'm very like, okay, is this really gonna make it better for everybody? If it just makes it better for me, I can cope with that. But if it's making it better for me but less good for everybody else, I don't want to do that, because I don't want us to be the people that make it hell for everybody else. So I will bring technology on set only if it makes it better for everybody. So
I guess people really have to place their trust in you.
Well, I mean, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people
Yeah,
involved.
no, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah. I mean, it's a stressful job.
Mm.
It is a stressful job,
Yeah.
and you have no room for, you know. At the end, we're the last one. We're the last man standing on these films, because everybody else gone by the time we deliver our shots. We're just there, and this is it. This is what you're putting in your film now.
Yeah.
So we have to just we're there at the end looking at the director and telling him, this is what's going in your film, you're happy with
Like
it,
it,
right?
please like it.
I mean, it's true, it is true, you know. If there's if suddenly they're thinking, okay, well, that set that we built, I like it, but I wish it was. And then we are the people that are making the wish it was being real. So we have to deliver.
Magicians.
Well, we try. No, we don't succeed always, but we try at least.
Are you quite critical of your own work?
Well, you have to be, yeah. But there's always, you know, there's, again, it's everything. Everything in life needs to be balanced, right? You have the amount of time you have, the amount of money you have, the quality you want to achieve, and it's that triangle, and then you need to balance it. So sometimes the release date is coming and you have to let it go, and it's the same for everybody, you know. We always wish we had more time, but we don't. And sometimes you have too much time, and you start noodling, and is it the right thing to do, or it's fine, you know. Well, why do you want to do more to this? It's already great. So it's that balance you need to find.
Do you ever put any like secret little Easter eggs?
Eggs.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're asked to put Easter eggs in the shots. There's one thing I do, which is I've been able to do it since I've been at Marvel. Every movie I've supervised at Marvel, I am in the movie somewhere. Yes.
Guardians. Where are you in Guardians?
In Guardians. So in Guardians, I'm an hologram on the table in the prison. In Doctor Strange, I'm running in the streets of New York.
Wow.
In the back, some behind Strange and and Mordo. In Doctor Strange, no, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, there's that scene where, you know, the pigeons. I don't know if you've seen it. The pigeon scene, you know, when they're in that little car and there's the pigeons, and there's a big truck, you know, like a dump truck coming, and there's someone walking in the back and trying to open the corner shop. That's me. And I have my Doctor Strange hoodie, so you can see the mandalas of Doctor Strange on my back while I'm trying to open the shop.
I love it. Do you just go to the director? Can I just get in this one?
They usually we usually try to do a cameo.
Sometimes. I think that's brilliant. So if someone decided they wanted to do what you do,
yes,
how would you advise them?
Good luck.
To get into it.
It takes a bit of time to get there. Yeah. Well, there's schools. There's a lot of schools now that, you know, movie making, filmmaking, visual effects schools, animation schools. There's much more than there used to be when I started. When I started, it was a little bit more of a wild jungle. But there is schools, and, you know, they just need to be passionate about it. They just need to watch films, watch what's happening, you know, work hard.
Would say visual effect artists kind of be the first step?
Yeah, you start. I mean, you can start there. You can start by. That's how I started. I was just you don't start by being a supervisor. It's like you don't start by being the CEO of your company. You just, I mean, unless you do your own company, but you gotta go up the food chain, you know. So you just start being, you know, see what you like. It's much more specialized now than it was when I started. You know, we were kind of what we call generalists, so we were doing a bit of everything. But now it's a little bit more, you know, industrial in a way. So you gotta find what you like. If you're a good animator, you know, find that you're good at that, and then very specialize yourself. And then, or good at lighting. If you like photography, you know, and you like the way, you know, lighting stuff, learn that, and then try to learn how to do it in a digital environment. And there's a lot of tools that you can download now. Most of the software that is available has some learning editions that you can download for free.
What's kind of like a piece of crucial software?
Well, there's 3D software that you can download that teach you how to do modeling or building or animation. It's there's Maya, which is one of the biggest one. There's Houdini, which is another package that has a lot of very cool, interesting procedural systems that is getting used more and more for special effects in visual effects. But for everything now, it's a very good package. There's Blender, which is a totally free software that you can download totally for free. That is a very good tool to learn. For compositing, which is more like 2D work, once the CG is rendered and you want to mix it with reality, then you use Nuke. But there's most of like Blender have their own compositing software, so there's lots of, and in the end, the truth is software is important and technique is important, but if you learn one, you're going to learn all of them. You're going to be able to understand the basic fundamental things that will let you use any of these software. After that, it's just a learning curve, but it's the basic principles are always the same. If you're a good artist, you're going to know how to use the tools wherever they are, whichever they are. Just go into it and learn about filmmaking. I would say that's a big thing. Learn about filmmaking, visual storytelling, because that's what will make the difference between being a good technician that can do cool stuff and being someone that can rise to the level of being a supervisor that can understand what a story is there to tell, or what an image is there to tell, what a visual is here to tell. And that's what makes a difference between someone that can talk to a director or a script writer or producer and someone that can't.
Yeah. So just don't get weighed down with the technical element.
Well, you have to initially, you got to understand how these things are made, because if you can't talk to the vendors about how to achieve stuff or, understand how they do stuff, then it's not a great thing. So you have to go through that phase of being, a good technician. But what will take you to the next level is understanding filmmaking, understanding how an edit works, how you frame an image or a shot, and then the shot that comes after it, so that things work together in a cut. You need to understand composition, lighting, all these things that are element of storytelling and how they're used for storytelling. So watch a lot of movies, document yourself about how movies are made, how people think about how they construct a sequence, things like that are important, because if you don't have that level of knowledge when you talk to a director, you're not going to understand what they want, why they're using a certain lens or a certain camera move, or why they're composing their shots a certain way, because they want to tell the story this way, or they want to intensify the emotion at that point. All these things are very important to understand, even as a visual effects artist, because as I told you earlier, we recreate on our digital side what the physical side is doing. And it's not just we recreate, a costume or thing, we recreate a proper movie making machine. So it's all about story and what we want to tell. So all these tools are there to push a narrative. And as a supervisor, you need to understand how you use all these tools to create the narrative. So that's important that you get that and you build that knowledge.
It's a hell of a job you've got. It really is.
Yeah.
One last question for you. If you could succinctly sum it up, what are the good, bad, and mad, crazy things about what you do?
Well, the good is definitely interaction with all these creative people, because that's so exciting. That's what I strive for. I just try to work with people and understand what they want to achieve, and storytelling, and then delivering a film that people enjoy. It's the good. The bad is it's really hard work. It's a hard work. It's very stressful, sometimes completely annoying, because it's just these things are so hard to do, and it's frustrating. Sometimes you don't get to where you want to be and to where you want the things to be, and it's really, really grueling, and it takes a toll on your health, your mental health at least, and you just want to some days you just want to shout and say frustrated, but I guess it's the same in every job. It's a lot of pressure. This job is a lot of pressure, but you cope with it. You learn to cope with it, and you learn to understand that if you just stay cool and think about things analytically, you're gonna get through it. And then the mad, it's always mad. Every day is mad. The mad thing, the mad thing is what I said earlier. It's a circus. Like, so your life is always in constant turmoil. You're gonna go there and you're gonna shoot there for 6 months, and then you move back, and then it's very demanding, and it's very challenging, and some days you're thinking, where was I yesterday? What was I doing? And then I've taken that plane, and then now I'm in the middle of Iceland in an helicopter, and tomorrow I'm gonna fly down to Morocco and shoot these plates, and then the day after I have to do a review with the studio. I got to prepare all that. So the constant craziness that you have to deal with, the constant challenges that you have to deal with is pretty maddening in places, but it's cool. I mean, it's part of the excitement. I'd be bored to death if I wasn't doing this. So I guess I am mad for doing it.
All the best people are.
That's okay.
Stef, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're an absolute star, and it's been wonderful to have a little bit of insight into your work. It's astonishing.
Yeah, I think we're all a little bit crazy. But that's what makes it fun.
Of the common theme across the different podcasts and different people I've spoken to, that's the thing that comes up. Everyone's like, we're all a little bit mad.
Yes, we are. Yeah. But that's fine. That's the fun of it. The fun of it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Good Bad Mad podcast. Please subscribe to check out the next episode, or leave a review if you liked it. You can find us on Instagram @goodbadmad or at goodbadmad.com for additional resources and information. See you next time.